For the first time in 3 decades, we were able to look behind the curtain of a DOJ Civil Rights Investigation against local law enforcement when the Phoenix Police Department responded to the DOJ summary report by listing each incident along with all the body camera videos and associated reports. This entire DOJ investigation is a master's class in deception and dishonesty. If the media isn't going to do their job, I'm going to have to do some of it for them. Today, we're going to look at incident number 8. The DOJ used this incident with the Phoenix Police Department as an example of how they delay medical aid to incapacitated suspects and use unreasonable force against them. Now, as a reminder, in the use of force incidents used by the DOJ, they left out pertinent facts and details of each case in their summary report to then rule that the force was unconstitutional. The problem is, to rule on the reasonableness of force or the constitutionality of force by law enforcement, you need those details. So let's see what they said about incident number 8. In one incident, after shooting a man, officers fired multiple rounds from a less lethal projectile launcher and sent a police dog to drag the man back to the officers. Video shows the object that had been in the man's hand landed approximately 8 feet away from him, and he made no significant movement towards it. Yet, over 9 minutes passed from when the officers shot the man to when they moved in to complete the arrest and render aid. At least a dozen officers were on the scene who could have provided lethal cover for other officers to approach and secure the man without further use of force. Instead, they released a dog that bit the man's leg and dragged him back to the waiting officers. It's pretty obvious a lot of facts are left out of that synopsis. So let's take a look at the actual details and facts of this incident. Members of the Street Crimes Unit received information from criminal investigators about a group of individuals responsible for 28 armed robberies throughout the Phoenix metropolitan area. Officers from both units conducted surveillance along with officers from the Goodyear Police Department. Officers from both departments were in unmarked vehicles. Additionally, a fixed-wing aircraft was used to monitor and film the subject's conduct. Surveillance lasted for hours and culminated when the individuals under surveillance committed an armed robbery at a fast food restaurant in Goodyear. Surveillance officers observed 3 armed subjects enter the business while a 4th subject stayed with the suspect vehicle. Plans of a takedown arrest were aborted when the suspect vehicle went mobile and drove away. Unmarked units followed the suspect vehicle while alternative tactical plans were explored. A decision was made to stop the vehicle utilizing a grappler device attached to one of the officers' unmarked police Tahoes. Within a few seconds of the car stop, a suspect in the back seat fled the scene, pointed a weapon at officers who then used deadly force. The suspect ended up falling to the ground about 25 feet in front of the suspect vehicle. That object the DOJ alluded to in their summary, that was a gun approximately 6 feet away from the suspect as he lay on the ground and continued to move. The officers break into 2 teams. One team is covering the suspect on the ground while the other team performs a felony car stop. They bring each suspect out of the car and then they clear the car. During this time, the suspect made at least 2 movements that were perceived by officers to be towards the weapon on the ground. They used less lethal munitions on the suspect when the moves occurred. They continued to give verbal commands to the suspect, who did not comply. The suspect was commanded to walk back towards officers, but he did not comply. And within 1 minute of the vehicle being cleared, a canine was released on a leash, and the suspect was moved away from the handgun and back towards officers, where he was taken into custody. The officers were cleared of any wrongdoing by the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. The department ruled the shooting in policy, and on a personal note, it was an excellent tactical plan. And this is where the DOJ fails. While all the facts I just told you were omitted from the DOJ summary report to say the force was unconstitutional and the officers did not provide timely medical aid, look at how they described this incident to the citizens of Phoenix. Rather than saying what was clearly a gun, they simply call it an object. They claimed it was 8 feet away while the report stated it was 6 feet away, but I think anyone watching this understands the danger is the same. They said the suspect made no significant movement, which clearly means that he made movements as indicated by video. And let's remember those Fourth Amendment standards. The reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene. The officers perceived that he moved towards the gun on 2 different occasions. And how did the officers react to this? Did they use additional deadly force? No, they used less lethal force on a suspect they perceived was reaching for a gun. And the idea that DOJ puts forward that the officers could simply cover a suspect vehicle with armed robbery suspects inside and go immediately give medical aid to a robbery suspect with a weapon nearby is insanity. In fact, that proposition places everyone at additional risk. If something happens in the middle of that, additional deadly force is likely to occur, whether somebody in the car does something, or whether the suspect does something. It is literally beyond belief that the Department of Justice takes a textbook tactical stop and turns it into wrongdoing and portrays the Phoenix Police Department in this light. Once we released the preliminary report, some in the local media there in Phoenix called the report controversial. Others called me controversial. It is ironic that it's not controversial for the DOJ to mislead on every single incident. It's not controversial for nameless people to write this report. And it's not controversial. They tried to get the city of Phoenix to sign into a consent decree with this flawed investigation. And it's also not controversial that they claim Albuquerque is a success story with the DOJ consent decree when their violent crime has increased 80% and their staffing has been significantly reduced while the DOJ has been there. As a researcher, I'll let the so-called journalists call people names. I want to keep bringing you facts of what occurred here. The citizens of Phoenix deserve that transparency.